Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. A couple notes of housekeeping. When you're not speaking, please remember to keep your microphone muted to reduce background noise. And just a note that we are recording this meeting. So by participating in the meeting, you're consenting to it being recorded, and a recording will be available afterward. We posted meeting materials on the webpage. The link is right here on the slide, but it's also available in the chat. And is in the email that you should have received with information about the meeting. Thank you for coming. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes.
Camera looks like. All right, Daniel, I think that we can get started with your announcement.
Sounds great. So just one note of logistics. As permitted by the governor's disaster declaration of January 8th, 2021, the determination has been made that it is not practical or prudent for this committee to meet in person. And so to ensure as transparent and open a meeting as possible, we posted the meeting materials approximately a week in advance. We're providing a recording of this meeting linked on our website, and we'll take any votes such that we have them by roll call. If you have any technical difficulties during the meeting, please reach out to me either through the chat function or at my email or a phone number listed right there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the quarterly meeting of the Regional Transportation Operations Coalition. Thank you for attending online. This is my second experience with it, so be patient with me. So the first agenda item that we have are agenda changes and announcements. And there aren't any agenda changes. Does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to make just at the beginning? Okay, I will say that CMAP has a call for projects out for the CMAQ program. Traffic signals and other operational improvements are eligible mostly for that. So if everybody has some projects in their mind, it's a good time to start thinking about making applications for them. You probably received some notification to your office about the new program opening up. Okay, agenda item 3, minutes approval. Daniel posted the meeting minutes from last time, and I hope that you've all had a chance to take a look at them and see if you want to make any corrections or changes to them. So this is your opportunity to suggest corrections if you have any. So feel free to just speak up here. All right, I don't hear any corrections then to the minutes from last time, so we'll just say that the minutes are approved as they are. So thank you, Daniel, for doing that. Now we have thank you to Justin Effinger. He suggested that we have crowdsourcing data for operations presentation. He's seen it and thought it was very good, so I guess we'll get started with that. Ralph Volpe will present and Justin will provide his comments on the topic.
Good morning, Claire, and I'll need for you to allow me to share my screen.
All right.
And Ralph, you should have just gotten permissions.
Okay.
I just made you the presenter. Great, and we can see that now.
Okay, let's see. There we go. Hey, good morning, everybody, and thank you. I just want to, let's see, get a little bit organized. Sometimes you get a little bit clunky with a lot of different windows open and different platforms. But I want to say thank you to the Regional Transportation Operations Coalition, especially Claire and Daniel, as well as Justin Effinger from Lake County, for allowing me to briefly introduce an innovation at many state DOTs, toll authorities, county and local agencies, regional and corridor coalitions, just to name a few that have been integrating into their everyday processes and analytics. My name is Ralph Volpe, and I'm a Transportation Systems Operations Specialist with the FHWA Resource Center Operations Technical Service Team. I'm based just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, but I cover the country. And one of the things that I'm involved in is the Everyday Counts program, especially on the innovation of crowdsourcing for operations. I'm one of the co-leads for that program. But first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about the Everyday Counts program and what FHWA has been involved with. You hear the term as EDC, and it's a state-based model to identify and rapidly deploy proven but underutilized innovations to achieve various goals such as shorten the project delivery process, improve environmental sustainability, enhance roadway safety, and reduce congestion. EDC runs in a 2-year cycle, and we just wrapped up round 5 back in December. Over 50 innovations have been promoted over the years from round 1 through round 5, and the program has been very successful. Each year, whenever we go for evaluation, there's always a number of different innovations, but we can only select a few. But round 6 has just begun, and one of the things that EDC saw was there's been so much advancement in the area of crowdsourcing that they invited us to be part of round 6, and so we're kind of excited to kind of really be involved in advancing this particular innovation. So some of you who may not be really familiar about crowdsourcing, so what exactly is it? Simply put, crowdsourcing is the practice of addressing a need or a problem by enlisting the services of a large number of people via technologies. In this definition, there are 3 distinct elements reflected in the text and graphic. Let's spend a moment on each element. First, crowdsourcing addresses a need or a problem beyond an organization's resources by distributing the workload across a large and diverse group of people. Second, it leverages the unique insights within this group of people. The collective insights can offer a greater value as compared to the expert input or smaller sampling. And third, the critical piece is the communications platform through which information is shared. This is particularly important for real-time operational use of crowdsourced data. I will kind of like first to highlight a little background about crowdsourcing and how it kind of was introduced in some of the other industries where they've had success. In the example on the left, Foldings at Home is a passive participation of crowdsourcing initiated at Stanford University, where people from around the world volunteered their computers to be used in this project. The project used the idle computing time of nearly 8 million computers to run simulations for the protein folding and drug design. It ended up being the fifth most powerful computer in the world. This effort combined to major advancements in disease and drug research such as Alzheimer's, cancer, and more. The example highlights that crowdsourcing can either be active or passive, where users can either achieve or either active participants or just passively participating. Now on the right is a group called Lego Ideas, and they work closely with the Lego Corporation. And what they search for is an active participation driven by self-interest. These are the Lego super fans, and they post detailed ideas of what new kits Lego should develop. If their idea gets more than 10,000 views, Lego will review and potentially manufacture the kit. The idea submitter receives 1% of the product's revenue, and Lego quickly hones in on the great ideas. In both examples, signing up is easy. Each effort balanced leveled activity input with potential participants' benefit. Of course, the EDC program is promoting crowdsourcing in the context of TSMO, that's Transportation Systems Management and Operations. TSMO refers to strategies such as traffic incident management, road weather management, work zone management, and arterial or traffic signal system management that maximizes the efficiency, safety, reliability of the existing transportation infrastructure. TSMO is more relevant now than ever before, given the shrinking budgets and huge changes in traffic demand and modal uses. It's about strategies that reliably move more people and goods while mitigating and even preventing congestion. TSMO is built on the foundations of monitoring current traffic conditions and analyzing performance over time to strategically operate transportation systems with multiple modes and cross jurisdictions. And one thing about TSMO, it is always supported by ITS. Now, while real-time monitoring is the foundation for TSMO, the fact is no agency has the funding to deploy, maintain, and monitor roadside sensors on every freeway, arterial, and rural facility. Traditional field equipment like closed-circuit television cameras, loop detectors, and environmental sensors, and even Bluetooth are very expensive. And quite often, agencies can't see across the facility boundaries due to jurisdictional or facility type stovepipes, even though demand or capacity changes in adjacent jurisdictions can affect their facilities. Crowdsourced data fills the gaps. The most prevalent sources of crowdsourced data integrate multiple types of information, just like in the example photo here of the mixed jelly bean jar. For example, vehicle probe data vendors such as INRIX, HERE, TomTom use GPS information from commercial fleets, cellular triangulation data, and real-time connected vehicle data from specific auto manufacturers, and historical data to transmit travel time and speed data. Navigation apps from the private sector, such as Waze and Google, along with agency 511 apps, generate event data such as slippery roads, flooding, stalled vehicles, crashes, and even faulty traffic signal lights or a down stop sign. Apps also collect GPS location from the mobile device and make available speed data. Social media is a form of tweets that are growing in use by agencies to monitor for events. The EDC5 Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinar series that was housed by the National Operations Center of Excellence includes a webinar on operational successes using social media. Mobile infrastructure such as work zones, smart cones, or vehicle-embedded friction sensors and other devices that transmit data in real time offers greater visibility on performance and operational opportunities for predictive systems management. Now, crowdsourced data is one of several sources of data that supports systems operations, or otherwise known as TSMO strategies, with this opportunity to improve the broad suite of interconnected operational programs and from traveler information and incident management to arterial management and work zone management. For most large agencies, the Traffic Management Center and its advanced traffic management systems are the data integration focal point. It's through data integration analysis that greater benefits can be had. The goal is to move from manual viewing of data to an integrated process that simplifies the operator's workload across the whole suite of TSMO strategies. To note, crowdsourced data and tools are now available that can help local agencies that don't have a traffic management center or ATMOS system. Dozens of state and local agencies begun leveraging crowdsourced data through the EDC-5 program to overcome the shortcomings of traditional real-time transportation monitoring. Take, for instance, the Tennessee Department of Transportation. In this example, the black lines reflect where ITS infrastructure supports monitoring of the in the state, mainly around the major cities. The red, yellow, and green lines show that the crowdsourced data from the navigational app provider and crowdsourcing expanded the state's real-time monitoring footprint to every major freeway. Data from Tennessee DOT and other agencies confirm that crowdsourcing helps detect crashes, potholes, and other incidents more quickly. Crowdsourcing data spans whenever and wherever people travel, ignoring district and regional boundaries. Moreover, some agencies have begun to retire ITS roadway monitoring infrastructure between freeway exits, complementing roadside sensor volume data with crowdsourced speed and travel time data. Now let's look at one of your neighboring agencies, the Indiana Department of Transportation. They first begun using vehicle probe data in 2011 due to a major unplanned interstate closure. The vehicle probe data helped them position a temporary traffic signal, retime multiple signals, and implement other strategies to improve detour travel from 4 hours to 64 minutes. This same data is now used for nearly a dozen operational capabilities. For example, Indiana DOT created a tool that to identify and respond to potential incidents. It is now used by law enforcement officers at work zone sites as well as traffic management center operators. Indiana DOT also uses this data to prioritize signal retiming and assess impacts from the retiming. For example, based on crowdsourced data, they estimate a $2.7 million annual savings from retiming a 9-mile arterial corridor. Over multiple years, Indiana DOT eliminated 130 existing roadside infrastructure sites and will use crowdsourced data in lieu of 600 planned sites. This will result in a $28 million infrastructure savings and a $750,000 a year in communication services and maintenance cost savings. States applying crowdsourcing to collect data and also share crowdsourced data within their own agency and to traveling public. The Virginia DOT and the Delaware DOT are two great examples for this. Both agencies share crowdsourced event data from Waze through their 511 app. The Virginia DOT also shares vehicle probe speed and travel time data. Both agencies also encourage travelers to report issues through their app. This helps them identify potential hazards such as potholes, malfunctioning traffic signals, or roadway crashes. Delaware DOT also pulls down the data from Waze and will send automated summaries to maintenance staff for them to kind of prioritize within each of their 4 divisions. Apps like these provide a one-stop experience for all things travel related. You can see on the Delaware app information on snowplow locations, work zones, and other advisories. Not pictured, but on the Virginia DOT app also shows park and ride information and supports turn-by-turn navigation using Waze routing. The app helps improve customer engagement and improves its operation by detecting, addressing road safety issues. Here's an example from the Maine Department of Transportation. They use crowdsourcing to improve efficiency in their road weather data, especially integrated with their Compass traffic management system. Their TMC operators were receiving sporadic and often overwhelming number of phone calls from the road crews during the winter weather months, which they had to manually enter into the Atmos system, often translating quality misinformation and imprecise location data. By integrating Waze, the TMC operator would now be able to view the highway events geospatially. More and more agencies are becoming Waze for Cities partners. And you'll hear much more of this from Justin on his Lake County experience. But what is interesting to note is that a few state DOTs and municipal employees are becoming Waze map editors, and in doing so can quickly update Waze maps to reflect work zones, road closures related to flooding, and also other network changes. Other agencies are establishing relationships with their local map editors to facilitate network change. One such agency is the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. This massive agency manages and operates airports, seaports, some transit, and the Hudson River bridges and tunnels, to name a few. For their $8 million LaGuardia Airport modernization of 2 terminals, the Port Authority staff worked on segments to help mitigate landside circulation changes due to the construction within the area of LaGuardia Airport. Now, throughout the EDC5 crowdsourcing for operations, we've been experienced 19 states that advanced their use of crowdsourcing. But at the close of last year, we anticipate, as our numbers are coming in, that number will likely be about 25. 5 of the states initially that from the very beginning were not interested, but since has advanced on their own. And we're finding right now nearly 40 state and local agencies have benefited from the EDC5 from the EDC5 crowdsourcing for operations benefit. So as you can see, it's kind of been, we've had a lot of success in this program. In the EDC5, most participating agencies focused on one aspect of operations using crowdsourced data, the low-hanging fruit of traveler information and incident management. Now with EDC6, we will help agencies integrate multiple sources of data and support the use of data across multiple focus areas, including 6 illustrated here. Some agencies are looking at even more creative applications of crowdsourced data for ramp metering, variable speed limits, ITS infrastructure deployments, and looking at broader investment decision making. So why is crowdsourcing continuing as an EDC 6 innovation? And it's because most agencies have the potential for far greater benefits. Some agencies have used crowdsourced data for one application, let's say traveler information, and now they can use the data for many other improvements, such as traffic signal system improvements. Nearly every agency will benefit from the advancing their data management practices and from improved real-time data integration and sharing capabilities. Many agencies do not even archive their crowdsourced data, but during that we're allowed them to understand the use of how to archive such by using the different types of strategic and have them informed with strategic decisions. Therefore, crowdsourcing for operations will continue as an ED6 innovation and what we hope to help that we'll achieve over the coming 2 years. Our team in FHWA headquarters, a resource center, division offices, as well as state DOTs and local champions such as Justin, will help share our expertise and with those interested agencies for deeper crowdsourcing routes and yield a bountiful crop of benefits. Through the Everyday Counts program, we have a variety of resources that are available. We've conducted a number of different workshops throughout the past 2 years, and also have kind of geared toward peer exchanges on particular items to help support the advancement of crowdsourcing. We even offered technical assistance. In the photo here is an example of the technical assistance that we provided to the Massachusetts DOT, where we helped them develop a proof of concept real-time dashboard that kind of integrated Waze data along with and matched it with their linear referencing system so they could kind of give a good overview of where some of the key activities or incidents that are happening across the state. We also have and I mentioned earlier, the webinar series that we conduct with the National Operations Center of Excellence, and that's called Adventures in Crowdsourcing. We have about 13 different crowdsourcing webinars on that particular site. And those that are looking for immediate answers, fact sheets, and other sample applications, we even have a website available too. And I'll go ahead and share that website a little bit later in this program, put in the chat pod. But we do encourage those to subscribe to our crowdsourcing e-newsletter that we try to highlight different agencies from across the country and some of the activities that they're using. But for some of you that are really interested in some of the other innovations that are going on throughout the country, our EDC key office has 2 publications. One is a weekly newsletter called EDC News, and the other is a bi-monthly newsletter called Innovator, and that will kind of help you move forward with that. So I've kind of gone through a lot of different information and mentioned some things from different types of products that we use or manufacturers or agencies. But I just want to kind of briefly lay out that the U.S. government does not endorse products or manufacturers, trademarks, or manufacturers' names that appear in this presentation only because they are considered essential to the objective of the presentation. They are included for informational purposes only and are intended to reflect a preference, approval, or endorsement of any one product or entity. So with that, I thank everyone that's on the call today. If you have any questions or comments, I think we have questions that we'll take. Is it after Justin's presentation? But I'm, again, Ralph Volpe. I'm one of 3 co-leads for this innovation. James Collier and Greg Jones, also with the FHWA, also share in us bringing this innovation and assisting states, local agencies, transit agencies, regional coalitions across the country with understanding and using crowdsource in their everyday practices. So with that, I'll unshare my screen. And
thank you, Ralph. While you're doing that, yes, Justin is going to provide his perspective on this subject, and then we can have questions and discussion afterwards. You there, Justin?
Yes, I am. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. First thing I want to say is thanks to Ralph for that very informative presentation. I've definitely enjoyed participating in some of the EDC initiatives, whether it be webinars or workshops or anything like that. And Ralph has a big knowledge set, so I hope you guys can ask him some very good questions during the panel session. And for Lake County, I'm kind of just gonna go through some stuff live. This is our ATMS system, and we use Waze crowdsourced data. So you will kind of see that we do it in two different ways. First, we ingest the event data, which is basically users saying something that's going on, whether it's an incident or pothole or weather anything. And when it comes into our system, then we can click on it and we get some information from Waze. I kind of got lucky that there was one that came in as a potential event. And it gives us some really good information. And we already have a robust police CAD system. But even with that robust system, we still found that during 1 week that I analyzed, 1 out of every 10 events that we confirmed and posted to social media or our website actually came from Waze, which means that Waze gave us the information first. And the second source of information we get from them is travel time data. And they allow us to scrape the information from a JSON feed, and they update it about every 2 minutes, and we kind of keep some of the information so we can see kind of trends of where the speed's getting lower, where they're increasing. And if they meet a certain threshold, then we will post to our Lake County website. And here, obviously, as you can see, we're at about 10 o'clock, so it's very low key, and we're during COVID, so I wouldn't really expect to see any travel time postings. But let's take a snow day, and then you can kind of see all of the different travel times that can get posted to the website. And we have found that even something like this can be overwhelming to the user. So we created even more logic in our ATMS that if we get a snow event like this, we can turn off the layer so that when people go onto our website, they don't get to see it right away. They have to actually choose to see it. And we found that that's a lot better because people want to know where are the incidents more than where the travel times increase, because travel times are increased pretty much everywhere. We also have an archiving tool that we allow anyone to use. It's open source. This can take the Waze travel time data and store it for you so that you can analyze it at a different date. And I believe last time I checked, we had over 40 that have in some way either downloaded or potentially wanted to use it nationwide. So we've got some pretty good success, and kind of some advice is if the data is out there, even if you're not using it today, it's still good to store the data because you never know when you want to use it in the future. And we also, in this program, we have the option to send email notifications on if travel time is above a user specified threshold. And I got a couple of examples. One is just a basic typical day. These just could be an incident based where travel time is above the historical value. And it's really good to get those insights because it tells you, where do I need to look on my arterial systems? Is there an incident or something that hasn't been reported that I need to start checking out? And there's also the scenario of a snowstorm where we get a lot of email notifications for a lot of routes. And here it's not so much that the travel time is above normal because it's expected, because it's a snowstorm. It's how much is it? Is it 3 times the travel time of a typical historic travel time? And historic travel time is calculated by Waze. So it's something that's actually given to us. We don't have to actually calculate it, which is kind of nice. And it changes by time of day. So if it's recurring congestion, that historic travel time will go up to match that recurring congestion. For traffic signal management, we also ingest the information into our automated traffic signal performance measure system. And our ATS-PM system, which is storing high resolution events of traffic signal controllers, we found that the overlay of multiple different data sources becomes very valuable to us. And here we can kind of see the travel time index and the planning time index, and we can see what the typical travel time is. And this is for the span of the entire day, and we could modify it to just be an AM or PM peak if we wanted to. And this congested time is the amount of time that this corridor is above our user-defined threshold to meet congestion, as if it would be posted to our website. And once we can kind of find this really good travel time crowdsourced data, then we can overlay it with the ATS-PM data and find which intersections are actually causing the delay. And then we can target our response to those intersections. And some of the benefits that we have found, I mean, getting a system like this is, it can be very costly. So we found that the benefits to getting a system that has ATS-PM and crowdsourced data gives us a lot of efficiencies. And for us, those efficiencies would mean that we can do our signal coordination and timing studies in-house rather than consulting them out. So for us, getting the system is pretty much as simple as saying, we're going to reallocate the money that we would normally spend on our SCAD contracts and reallocate it towards the system. And over a 5-year period, we actually ended up saving the county $17,300 just by summing those two items. And we've also found that we could do our SCAD studies more frequently because of the efficiencies as well. And I'm not saying that we're going to get all of these combined into 1 year, but theoretically, if we could combine at least a couple more corridors that we would normally do in a year, and then by doing it in-house, we're going to get a higher benefit to cost ratio. And our county board likes to use this information and report on their newsletters. And one of the kind of cool things that we've developed too is a tool to analyze the travel time data as well. So our TMC manager, Ryan, he created this program for me where I can kind of take the data and put it into more usable bins that I can apply to certain reports. I'll get into my COVID reporting very shortly, and it's actually a really cool tool where we can separate weekdays versus weekends. We can change our bin size to 1 hour, 15-minute intervals, 30-minute intervals, and it puts it in a really nice format where I can really easily analyze the data. And then getting into our COVID reporting, this information then gets ingested into a report that I give weekly to Lake County DOT management. And in this report, we're kind of looking at what are the trends of COVID? What's the volume this week versus what's been the volume the last 2 weeks? And then what was the volume pre-COVID? And then we overlay the travel time to kind of see what is the impact on the travel time, which can then be conferred to delay with these reduced travel times. And as the delay starts increasing, then what are those impacts as well? And we've found very early on that when state mandates hit, we saw a lot of volume reduction. And that volume reduction, even if you didn't do anything to the arterial systems, it did mean that travel times were reduced. But we kind of noticed that they weren't really reduced as much as we thought. And we thought that there was room for improvement. So on Lake County DOT-owned traffic signals, we made system-wide timing changes through our central system. And in doing that, we saw those travel times get lower with the lower traffic volumes. And this example is Washington Street, but let's take the most heavily trafficked route in Lake County outside the tollway, US 41. And here in the purple line, you can kind of see that pre-COVID recurring congestion and unpredictability. This is the planning time index. I believe it's 90%. And when COVID hit and the volumes were reduced, you can see the blue line, the travel time did reduce, but once we made the system-wide timing changes, they reduced even more and became more reliable as time went on. And something I probably should have mentioned earlier was with the success of Lake County and Lake County being able to demonstrate the success on our intersections, we got permission from the Illinois Department of Transportation, Cook County, and the city of Highland Park, which are kind of the three biggest entities for traffic signals in Lake County. They all agreed that we could do these system-wide timing changes on their traffic signals that are in our system as well. And the last thing I'm going to kind of go into is using travel times for planning. 2020 was the first time that we used this crowdsourced data as in part of our scoring matrix for determining which capital projects should advance. And this is kind of one of the more dramatic corridors where it is very obvious that the travel time increased. And I'm comparing to what I call free flow travel time, which is basically the lower 10th percentile travel time over the analysis period, which gave me a really good base. And then I can kind of see like what's the percent difference in going up and when the travel time goes up. And I even am experimenting with using the planning time index instead of the percent difference. For 2020, we just used the percent difference. And the goal here is to get really good project separation to determine which projects really need it versus the ones that could maybe go a year or two without it. And we found that with our scoring, the way that we did it, and which is basically very experimental. We're kind of experimenting, what are the numbers, what do they come out to be, and then what should our points values be. And we found that we got very good separation. We got some of 20, which was the highest, and then we even got some that were zero, scoring zero, which means that the travel time was just very good. There's kind of no issue. And we got pretty much everything in between, which was exactly what we wanted. And With that, I will kind of end and open it up to the panel discussion.
All right, thank you, Justin. That's super. Well, this is the most difficult part of it, but does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to offer regards what Ralph or Justin was talking about?
It looks like we have one question or we have a couple questions in the chat. Which, if folks want to unmute themselves and ask these questions, that's fine, but I can also read them out. So the first one is from Sagar Sonar, and apologies if I've mispronounced that, from Kenley Horn. Has the FHWA or others engaged in validating the data? And does FHWA recommend a data source based on accuracy and confidence? So I guess that's for Ralph.
No, that's a good question. And that's one of the things when we started out with EDC 5, there was, how do we really look at the validation of the data? And through some of the states, they looked at the number of, looking at Waze entries and the points. One agency, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, developed a confidence ratio and looking at what comes through and users and what the information that they've provided. And they use that information to kind of help support with their analyzing, where key incidents are to support their traffic incident management program. And what was that second question there, Daniel, that was part of, is a two-part question?
Do you recommend particular data sources based on the accuracy or confidence you have in them? I think is the.
I mentioned there's a number of different kinds, like the probe data, and also you have the what we call the Waze or other types of data to support, and it depends on what you're using the data for and the confidence ratio. We tell a lot of our agencies to kind of experiment with it to begin with, to see what comes in your area, to see how your operators would understand the improvements of it. We're finding a lot of different uses from different agencies that are out there. Like Justin's use is a little bit more on arterials, where some of the other state DOTs are going to look more on the freeway side. But we're finding, like what Justin did, and that's why we entered into the next wave of everyday counts with this innovation, is his example of using the Waze data along with the data really helped understand where those gaps are and be able to kind of help justify and prioritize, as he just exhibited, on the savings of retiming. And I think that's what you have to really look at, is what exactly you want to look at, what you want to do. And that's one thing about everyday counts. It's not like that we want you to go full force. We want agencies that are just breaking through, and we'll put you at the very first step level and help you mature to a next level. Some of you may have heard of our capability maturity models that we use for TSMO. It's on maturity, and we kind of do the same thing with our everyday counts program.
Thank you. So the second question that we have is from Matt Latorno, and I think this is for both Ralph and Justin. What portion of the incidents reported by crowdsourcing services are confirmed as correct versus being false reports? And do you find that the benefits provided by the crowdsourced data outweigh the time spent verifying those incidents?
I don't know, Justin, if you may be better, since you are right there in the thick of things. It's kind of hard to say what is false and what is correct there. I think some of the traffic management operators have some of their confidence, and I haven't really seen it scattered across the country, how it's calculated. I don't know, Justin, any
Yeah,
thoughts there?
I can definitely provide some insights. As far as us, like actual doing like a study on it, we haven't. I believe some other states like Virginia have actually done studies on this because they will tend to take it more as value. Versus in Lake County, we kind of take everything with a grain of salt. We try and confirm everything that comes in with our robust PTZ cameras. And I think it's not so much that a lot of things come in false as much as you get a lot of events in the same location. So a lot of people are reporting the same event. And in our ATMS, it's very easy to kind of pinpoint when that happens because everything gets a GIS location to it. So once we start getting that group, we can confirm one and then kind of just start disregarding all of the other ones. And we found that the benefits do outweigh the time spent on it. And I can see that John's here, so maybe he'll want to kind of get into a little bit of the benefits as well.
Yeah, just to build on what Justin was saying, Waze does provide a reliability as far as everyone that submits an incident. So we get that reliability as well. And we know Waze, I mean, Waze is a game. So people are trying to get points and increase their little avatars to get different awards. And they do know that posting incorrect events does affect their scoring, I believe, reliability. So Waze looks at all that, calculates all that as well. So we are able also to filter some of those events out that are not coming in as reliable. But like Justin said, we do confirm everything with the camera before we post a Waze event. We'll look at that. We'll look at a Google map as well, see is traffic being affected. Are we seeing congestion in the area that the Waze event's being shown to be at? So we confirm everything before we kind of just take it, and like Justin said, everything with a grain of salt, and kind of go through it that way.
Claire, I think the next question is yours if you want to ask it.
Yeah, I guess I might as well ask it out loud. Do you think that scalability is a question in using this Waze information, for example, for the whole northeastern Illinois or even the whole state of Illinois? What? Either Ralph or Justin.
I can kind of take it first. I don't think there are really any scalability issues. We have found that with each Waze traffic tool, we get 200 routes. And we have a really good partnership with Waze. So when we ask for more traffic tools, they approve it like within an hour or something like that. And we're up to over 600 routes. And the only kind of lessons learned that I would give people is to start small, create your routes as small as possible, and let the bigger ATMS system do the calculations for the bigger routes. Once you start small, it'll be a lot upfront, but it gives you the most flexibility long term. That was something that we really learned from the start, because we kind of started with the bigger routes, but then we realized that with our traffic signal systems, we kind of really need these routes to be much smaller in order to find where are the real areas between traffic signals that are causing the problems. And I think like going like really big, it's more of a what is your agreement with Waze? I mean, for us, we have Lake County. So we can't really do Waze routes that are outside of Lake County because that's our agreement with them. Versus like if an MPO or something came in, they could do like the entire region and they could kind of do the routes for everyone. And then everyone could kind of just get it based on like APIs or something if there was a central system of some sort. Ralph, do you have anything else to add on that?
No, you're right. I think by by starting small is very, you want to mature into your confidence of using, let's say, Waze or other types of crowdsourced data, and maybe experiment. We're finding a lot of even municipalities, suburban cities are getting involved in the use of crowdsourced data. And some of it is mostly on citizen reporting to kind of help let the citizens become more engaged in that effort. But one of the things that I think a group like this could be more involved is understanding which cities are participating in the types of use of data and how they're applying it, and being able to kind of have some common platforms that, because nobody really looks at the boundaries of, going from one city to the next. It's just moving from point A to point B in a safe, reliable, and efficient manner. And so I think it's good for a forum like this to be discussing about these various resources to use, especially low-cost type of resources such as crowdsourced data to help supplement. We're finding in, let's say, rural areas, we're getting a lot more coverage. I'm sure some of the staff from the Illinois DOT that are on this program have been exploring crowdsourced data for looking at some of those areas that are outside of metropolitan areas of, since they can't put up roadside sensors or other types of sensors to give them that information, where this information is helping them, look at how they best respond to incidents and other weather and activities out there in those rural areas as well.
Oh, very good. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to offer or ask? Okay.
One thing just to read out, Tom Martha noted that the chart on one of Justin's slides was remarkable and shows the importance of ongoing system monitoring and signal system and communications modernizations. So thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess we'll move on to agenda item 5. And this is a discussion of the 4 documents that, well, 1 website and 3 documents that you received copies of. I hope that you've had a chance to look at those. Since we just got finished talking about traffic signals with Justin, I think that we'll start by asking about the signal modernization recommendations document. I don't have a presentation for this. I'm just going to be talking. And, we've talked about improving signals for, probably the last year or even the last decade, to be honest. And so we've developed these recommendations for how the region could move ahead for modernizing traffic signals. And some of the main things that were included in the document is that the signals aren't supporting our modern signal operations, but unfortunately, we don't have enough information about asset conditions about them. So we do think an asset inventory or starting to work on asset condition inventory for signals is important. And we should support that as a region and as an MPO agency. We want to support development of more, we want to raise the visibility of the problem of traffic signals in all the agencies and with policymakers, because I believe that one of the reasons why investment levels are where they are is because it's easy to ignore traffic signals, really. And since we do have a lot of funding sources that can be used to improve traffic signals, that if we can raise the visibility of their importance and how much delay they're causing and support development of competitive applications, we should be able to, I hope, increase the amount of money that we spend on traffic signal systems without trying to create a new program or set aside. Our discussions with people, we didn't really find support for cutting out funding, creating a cutout of funding for traffic signals. So it makes sense to start where we think we can have some impact and see how successful we are before we start agitating for, creating a new signal program by itself. CMAP itself can support traffic signal studies through our UWP program that can support asset management and any kind of planning studies for traffic signals. So we do think we should be doing that. We also, of course, recommended central signal systems and automated traffic signal performance measures and monitoring. So with that, those are the main conclusions. Also, the fact that North Avenue Smart Corridor should be underway pretty soon, and given the large number of traffic signals and the large amount of improvement needed in that corridor, that's going to be a pretty good demonstration project of how much it costs to really improve traffic signals for a large number of signals. So, with that said, what I'd like to do here is just find out if anybody has any objections to what we've included in the signal modernization recommendations. If nobody objects to what we have, we are going to finish polishing it up and figure out how we can use this to support improving the region's traffic signals. So, opening it up to comments.
I have a comment, Claire.
Yeah.
You hear me? This is Mark Pitstick at RTA. Thanks.
Yeah.
I wanted to just sort of test the waters here a little bit. I didn't look just now at the report. I looked at it a little while ago. I didn't look for this goal, but I'm looking at the minutes from the last meeting, and there was a bit of a discussion about the life cycle of traffic signals and sort of a rate of replacement. I mean, this is Abraham Emanuel, I think, said there was a 50-year life cycle for the traffic signals, and therefore a 2% per year might be appropriate as a replacement. But I kind of want to challenge that a little bit and see whether, first of all, whether you have that kind of recommendation in the report, if that got in there. But can we really expect modern traffic signals to have a life cycle of 50 years still? I know that a lot of the stuff that's out there now is 50 years old. Is that good practice? Do we really think that's gonna hold going forward? I mean, if we think about our communication equipment, the life cycle is like 5 years. So, and our traffic controllers now are more and more communication based, and yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't expect something that lasts more than 10 years. The guts of a traffic signal controller, at least. So.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah,
I want to be a little provocative on that. Well, I would push for a more aggressive, much more aggressive goal than 2% a year.
Yeah, while we are able to nurse along our traffic signals for 50 or 50 plus years, I don't think that's a recommendation that we made in the traffic signal improvement document. It is true that since traffic signals are now more computer and technology based, yeah, they age, more quickly. For sure, you can use them for a longer period of time. Hopefully, over time, the costs of what's inside them will go down. When I look at it, I think how much different is the computer capabilities of a traffic signal versus my smartphone?
Right.
Really. My smartphone has communications, it has a computer, it can get on the internet, it can do all this great stuff. And so, well, that's an aside, but yeah, we didn't look 100% at the life cycle of it. We just looked at what it would cost to upgrade, try to look up what it would cost to upgrade the signals that we have out there right now. And because we don't have any asset information, or we only have partial asset information, it's really hard to tell how much it's going to take. I think it will become clear as we start improving the traffic signals and collecting more information, how much investment it's really going to take. But no, I don't think 50-year life cycle. I think it probably is closer to what we expect from our laptop computers and our communications infrastructure than what we expected from our traditional traffic signal infrastructure. If that makes any sense.
So this is This is Taqi Mohammed from Pace Bus. One recommendation I do have is that as a transit agency, we do transit signal priority and other applications. So my recommendation is that to make a multimodal application, or in simple words, where the traffic signals have transit and potentially a TSP, those, if we can give preference in providing investments or funds, that would be a good way to kind of like grade where the investments should go, what corridor, so that would be one of the recommendations I would like to make. So right now, PACE and CTA are deploying TSP. PACE is deploying around 300 signals. CTA is also deploying more than 100 plus. And so this program will continue. So over the years, so I think this will be a good time to introduce that, so that we have some criteria or a process where we know where we get more benefits, and include transit in the, what do you call, some factor or criteria. So thank you.
Thank you, Taki. We'll definitely, when we start looking at actual prioritization of locations, be more specific about what conditions at the location would make it a higher priority. Tom, I hear you had some comments on there. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so Taki kind of touched on this. So the life cycle of the different components and so forth are going to vary quite a bit. So the standards and the mast arms and that sort of stuff are going to have a different life cycle than say the communications devices and the controllers and that sort of thing. So some of that stuff will last 50 years, but a lot of it will need to be replaced much sooner.
And probably, like I said, as we go through trying to improve the system, we'll get a lot more information about, how much of that is needed and how long things are lasting, and those topics that we don't have now, because we don't have that much specific information. I see Matt said that, Chad said that just what Tom was saying, that different physical elements have a different life cycle than the technology elements at the traffic signals, of the traffic signals. So.
And Claire, this is Bill Edson, DuPage. If I can piggyback on Taki's comments, I mean, it's the transit priority is a big technological component, but it may be, that we need to talk about multimodal too. What's going to be different going forward about bike detection, about the Internet of Things as bicyclists start getting apps on their smartphones. The stuff comes from the West Coast. California's got a big push for bicycle detection, and as bike users around here want that same level of performance, where do we need to be with our controllers, with our detectors, with our capabilities to be able to provide that same capability, accessible pedestrian signals or other pedestrian related technologies, leading pedestrian intervals, just the technology itself. Those things are all, a lot of what we do is so focused on cars and individual drivers, but understanding how to get ourselves set to accommodate PACE and CTA, or to accommodate those other users as well, I think is part of the discussion.
That's right. Very good. Anyone else?
Claire, it's Christina from Will County. I just want to, I understand and I am supportive of transit in all of its glory. The problem is that when you overemphasize transit, you weed out a whole segment of this region that does not have fixed transit service in it. And at least 2/3 of Will County has no fixed transit in it. And so, especially with us just starting on this trail, on this journey of ITS and traffic signal interconnect and whatnot, it's really not beneficial if we overemphasize any one area. yes, it's important, but the benefit can't just be giving preferential treatment to specific organizations or whatnot.
I understand that. And also, you know, when we're talking about multimodal locations, it is important to remember it's not just bikes and pedestrians and transit, you know, it's freight. Freight is very important. And, if, you know, Will County certainly does have a lot of freight traffic, and the amount of traffic that a roadway is carrying, you know, a very heavily traveled, very out-of-date corridor in Will County, in my opinion, should be able to compete as well as a heavily traveled corridor in some other place. So I think whatever happens, you know, there's going to be a big, given the proportion of users in the region who are driving, you know, either auto vehicles or freight vehicles, you know, we won't be able to just give preference to only to places with transit over other places that are highly in need. I think when we talked about identifying and prioritizing location, we did look at a lot, like places with delay everyone, places with bad planning time index or travel time index, you know, they delay everyone. They're unsafe for pedestrians. They're unsafe for bicyclists. They delay freight and vehicles. I think when we start talking about applications, we'll be able to include a lot of factors that are important, including transit. Sorry to go on over long. It seems easy for me to talk too much when I'm on a laptop. And Pete says that there is development of apps that allow pedestrians to not actually touch the ped buttons. Yeah, I think there is a lot of technology coming along as far as traffic signals. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to say about the recommendations that we made? Because we can check and make sure that we've included well enough the multimodal aspects for prioritizing locations. I think we did cover that in the report, but I'll double check it. Otherwise, does anybody object to us taking this document, polishing it up, and calling it done for the time being?
So Claire, the October 2020 draft, that is the most current version of it, right?
That's right.
Okay. I remember, I know I gave comments at one point to a version. I'm not sure which version that was. So.
Okay, I'll go back and.
But I mean, my comments may already be in there. I think I agree that, you know, taking these comments and then polishing it up. I don't know if you want to let us have one more spin at it to take a quick review of it as the operators of the signal systems.
I think, yeah, it's not like we're going to go out tomorrow and, you know, get it published or something. So yeah, if you feel like you want to take one more look at it, and please send me any comments that you have, we can incorporate whatever anybody says. You know, things are going a little bit slowly now that we're all working at home. So we should be able to incorporate your comments for some period of time, you know, in the near future. So feel free. All right, so what we're going to say about the traffic signals is, yeah, it looks okay. If anybody has any final comments, to send them to me, and then we'll move on with it. We won't have to talk about it at the next meeting. Any objections to that? Okay, hearing none, then that's what we'll do with that. The next thing is the ITS architecture. I sent out a link, and it was included in your meeting material, to a website similar to what you've seen before. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. And the main thing that I'd like you to look for, well, first of all of the information that's included in there was based on interviews with your agencies. So hopefully it's what you've said is reflected well enough. So if you can take a look at the architecture website and see if your agency's inventories, projects, and agreements are represented to your satisfaction, that's the main thing. So again, I didn't receive any comments on that up till now. I don't have to have them exactly today, but I'd like to get your concurrence that this pretty much looks appropriate. And if you have any final comments, to send them to me so I can, we can get ready to present them to the Transportation Committee or the MPO Policy Committee for final approval, which does mean your agencies get a chance to vote on approving the thing in its entirety too. So it's not the last time your agency is going to see it. Does anybody have any comments on the ITS architecture website? All right, well, it is pretty similar to what you've seen before, so I'm not surprised there's not too much. Please, if you can get a chance to take a look over the next month or two and get back to me with anything that you think is important to be changed. Otherwise, we'll get ready to take it through the approval process of the MPO. With that, there was also communications white paper. This was a special product that we asked for just related to the ITS architecture, because as we've been talking about investing in the system and talking about communications, I've heard from various people that, fiber optic isn't going to be needed. It's going to be all wireless, or, other kinds of comments about what we should be doing with the communication system. And I kind of wanted to get some evidence, to show people where really the communications infrastructure is headed in the future and what we should be investing in. So Scott Lee and his staff put a ton of work into this. There's a lot of information. I would boil it down in my own mind to, we're going to have to remain flexible. It isn't really clear where all the communications infrastructure is going to go in the future, but that security is going to be important, and that fiber optic communication is going to remain an important part of the system that we have to expand and maintain. So this is a document where we're probably just publish this more or less as is, as some supporting documentation for investments in the system, if we have an opportunity to screen them for any of our funding programs, to just show that, they are important investments. They're not going by the wayside. And so I would just ask that you take a look at it at some point, because it is really good information. And if you have any disagreement with what it says, just tell me about it. But otherwise, I'd like to just accept this document as is and let us get on with publishing it. So has anybody taken a look or have any comments?
Hey, Claire, this is John.
Abraham.
Yeah.
So I did went through it a little bit this morning. I haven't finished it completely, but I do have some comments I can send your way.
Okay, very good. That'll be fine. Again, we're not rushing out tomorrow to publish it. So, if you could just, everybody could just take a look over the next few weeks and send me back whatever they have, that'll be good. All right. The last thing that we have for those documents is the I-290 concept of operations, which is a high-level concept of operations, which focuses a lot of attention on integrated corridor management for the I-290 corridor, and provides some concrete examples of incidents and how they might be responded to, and other important information. I also did not get any comments back on this. I think probably IDOT would be most interested in what we were saying about this. So if anybody does anybody have any comments on that document at all? Because we would like to probably publish this under the auspices of integrated corridor management, and perhaps translate this to a concept of operations for the ITS architecture, although that part hasn't been done yet.
You've received no comments from District 1?
That's
Or-
right.
Have they had any input into the document so to date?
I think that Scott Lee discussed the subject with them, and you know, I think some District 1 staff are on this email, but I could reach out to them separately before we do anything more with it. You know, as I promised in the very beginning, there won't be anything published that people really have a big disagreement with. So,
Yeah, I agree. They should take a look at it though, because they're the ones operating it, I think.
all right. We'll make sure I'll get in touch with them separately before we go anywhere with this. That sounds fine. All right. Well, I think that's all that we had for agenda item 5. I know the next agenda item was agency updates, but our safety action person is here. And I think I'd like to let her go first so she can be done with it. And then we can use the rest of the meeting time for talking about the agency updates. Is everyone okay with that? I don't.
Claire, if I can go with agency update from PACE, because I got to drop off in 10 minutes.
Okay, go ahead, Taki, and then we'll do the.
Yeah, I'll keep it very brief. I think the group or the committee members are aware that PACE is kind of spearheading this TSP regional interoperable system. We have developed the system, deployed it on Milwaukee Avenue, and we got successful results. So, and then we are expanding the same system to Dempster Street, like 60 signals. And also we applied for permit for Dempster and also to the Grand Avenue. So as part of this system, we developed a EOS patch, which basically we are going to test in Lake County. So that's the short update I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Taki.
Thank you.
All right, Vicky Jacobson.
Yes.
New CMAP staff member I just recently became acquainted with. I think, can you introduce yourself and what your responsibility is at CMAP first?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Vicky Jacobson. I joined CMAP in September of last fall. I'm a transportation planner with a background in multimodal transportation planning and policy work. And I will be working on safety in the near term at CMAP. Most of my workload will be devoted towards addressing emerging traffic safety concerns in our region. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this program today. So I'll just jump in here. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. We're just kicking off, and it's exciting to loop as many people in as possible. So the Regional Safety Action Agenda is a response to a number of growing concerns and emerging needs in our region. The number of traffic-related fatalities in our region, and statewide and nationally, actually, are all trending upwards right now. More people each year since 2014 are being killed on our roadways. And this fact alone warrants the importance of this work. But in addition to that, CMAP has a federal mandate to set highway safety performance targets, and we're not meeting those. So part of not meeting those is, part of this work is an attempt to make meaningful progress towards those targets. We have kind of two philosophical approaches. You could raise the targets and meet them, or we could address traffic safety as the critical issue that it is. And that's the path that CMAP has decided to take with the support of our transportation committee. There are concerns about improving safety on local roads. So a majority of crashes that occur in our region are happening on local and county roads. And it has been brought to our attention that one of the ways that CMAP may be able to be effective on the safety topic is to provide any needed guidance, policy, data, information, solutions for local governments. So that's something that we're looking at. We also believe that there are new dimensions of safety to consider right now. Not only has the pandemic revealed some flaws in our transportation system, but there is an equity piece that we intend to do our work closely aligned with, which I'll talk more about later. And then finally, we're seeing growing numbers of and interest in active transportation modes. Part of that is a result of pandemic travel needs and people wanting to be socially distant, but those trends were actually in place already before COVID-19 hit. So we want to make sure that these vulnerable modes are as safe as possible. Next slide, please. So I'll briefly go over some of this data. Maybe you all are familiar with it, but since about 2014, our 5-year average of fatalities in the CMAP region of traffic-related fatalities has started to trend upwards. That is obviously a huge concern. Next slide, please. Another trend that we've been following, and this also relates to our highway safety performance target work, is the number of bicyclist and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. So we're seeing, of all the traffic-related fatalities, we're seeing higher percentages of pedestrians and bicyclists represented in those numbers. And with a growing interest in these modes, we want to make sure that we prevent that number from growing any further. So I think it's important here, you all may know or be familiar with the On to 2050 plan. I included our principles from that in this presentation today because I think when it comes to safety, it's important to frame the overarching goals of our work. So they speak to why we're focusing on equity and the fact that our transportation network is also connects people to jobs and all these many aspects of quality of life. So when we do our work on safety, we intend to address it as comprehensively as possible under the framework of our On to 2050 plan. So the principle number 1 is inclusive growth of our On to 2050 plan. That means a transportation system that works better for all people. And especially we have called out in our plan to support bicycle and pedestrian movements. Again, they're vulnerable, but they're also sustainable and affordable modes of transportation. And they're ones that we will likely prioritize as we look at the safety issues. We also, speed management is an ongoing issue. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. We are seeing some very alarming trends around speed, excessive speeding, which is speeding of over 15 miles per hour over the speed limit. Those numbers are increasing, so speed management will be a major topic of conversation. And then our plan also suggests that we eliminate all traffic deaths by 2050. So not only are we not making our 2% reduction safety targets, but we're obviously the trend is moving in the wrong direction for us to meet our kind of Vision Zero goal by 2050. Next slide, please. The resilience piece is you think, what does that have to do with highway safety? But actually, again, as we address safety, we'll want to support the sustainable and climate-friendly modes of travel. We're going to see increased number of extreme weather events in our region. So to the extent that the infrastructure we recommend and design can address that, the potential for flooding and other weather-related events, we want to factor that into our thinking. There's also kind of an interesting, this is kind of my take on resilience, but there's a public health component right now to our travel network. And what we saw during the pandemic was reduced demand for travel, making our roadways far less congested. And we saw unsafe driving behaviors result from that. So what we saw is this lack of resiliency in our transportation network in terms of travel demand. So that's another kind of dimension of resilience that we'll think about as we do this work. And then finally, our third principle, next slide, please, is the prioritized investment. So I'll talk about this more later, but we hope, we're obviously not making the progress on safety that we want to. So we're looking for ways to prioritize projects that advance safety in really meaningful and impactful ways. That will happen on the CMAP level, you know, we have a lot of project selection processes, and we hope that safety will be a bigger factor in those project selection, you know, choices. But also, how can we help all of our constituents select the best projects in terms of also advancing safety in addition to other needs? Next slide, please. So the mission of this regional traffic safety agenda, which is kicking off arguably right about now, is to address regional traffic safety in a comprehensive, equitable, data-driven, and collaborative way. Safety is not something that a lot of MPOs have played a strong role in to date. So we may be kind of pioneering a new space to address safety at the regional level. We'll be looking for input from the federal level, and we'll be looking for input from the local level to find out how we can best affect change as an MPO. We want to center the work around, as I've said, our onto 2050 guiding principles, also our core values, and the implementation levers that CMAP has. So I've mentioned project selection processes, policy work, leadership, the sharing of information and data. We want to make sure that we're inserting ourselves in a meaningful way, because there are a lot of people doing a lot of amazing work on safety, and there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel, but how can we be of value in this new space? Obviously, we have lots of partners on this, and we want to support the work of IDOT and other partners on safety. We're going to work with advocacy groups, public health interest groups, AAA, even AARP. So we've got a real wide variety of groups to do the best work we can. And the final piece of the action agenda is developing a long-term regional safety coalition. So the idea is here that this is not a one-off project and we let it settle, but that we raise awareness for the long term and progress on the safety issue. Next slide. Thank you. Okay. So traffic safety is traditionally explained by the 4 E's of engineering, education, emergency services, and enforcement. We're expanding that to include equity. And obviously, a major component of the equity piece is the enforcement piece, which I'll talk about in a minute. So we, again, will take action where we can have the biggest impact, but we are open to exploring all dimensions of safety here. We're open to providing design guidance where needed. We will connect people with targeted programs and resources to raise awareness and do some education programs. That's a topic I'm personally passionate about, is educating all users of the roadway so that everybody is safer. Emergency services is an ongoing issue. You know, there's a lot of technology and advanced information that can be provided to make emergency services run safer on our highways. They often, one crash often results in multiple crashes in terms of the emergency responses and the congestion. So we want to do what we can in terms of advancing that if there are things that CMAP can do. And then finally, the enforcement piece. We've seen over the last years, and certainly in 2020, highlighted that the enforcement of traffic safety laws has resulted in far worse consequences than the issues they were intended to solve. So we want to make sure that when we talk about enforcement, we're addressing the equity piece and understanding the context in which enforcement is happening, and hopefully have some best practices there. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go over each of these in a minute, but briefly, there are 4 components of the Regional Traffic Safety Action Agenda. People, this resource group, which I'll describe in a minute, information. We want on-the-ground practice while we're developing the work here, and then really useful deliverables at the end. And I'll talk about each of these briefly next. So the Traffic Safety Resource Group, there's at least 1, maybe 2 people in our room here that will be joining us for this work. We're kicking off at the end of this month, and this is a group of about, it's a pretty small group. representing each of the major geographies and components of safety. So we've got folks from advocacy groups. We have, county Department of Transportation folks. We have some folks from the city. We have public health folks. We have someone from AARP. So it's a really diverse group that's intended to kind of be like a think tank that will help guide where and how CMAP can have the most impact on safety. It's a short-term group, so it's going to meet for about 18 to 24 months in a series of meetings that will be focused on developing the agenda and also guiding the research that we do to support that. And we also hope that this resource group plants the seeds of this longer, broader coalition. There's been talk of, a regional Vision Zero program or some kind of sign-on where communities and municipalities throughout the region, and counties for that matter, have some tangible access to information and resources and a commitment to safety so that we can raise awareness around the region. Next slide, please. Yeah, so there's a lot to say about data research and best practices. We have some existing data sources. Certainly IDOT is an important partner in that. There's also a whole new, cadre of data out there with connected devices. We're going to try to understand what those sources can tell us about safety. Would love to hear from you all today about ideas for that, because we're just kind of digging into some of those sources. We want to use the data as much as possible to predict outcomes. Traffic safety has often been a reactive process where you go and put in resources where crashes are occurring, but as you kind of pan out on the topic of safety, people are wanting to get ahead of the game and not wait for crashes to occur. So we're exploring opportunities to understand conflict areas before they result in serious injuries and fatalities. And again, incorporate, and I say the resource group for best practices and data, but really everyone, you guys, every committee that CMAP's involved with, we're in the process of just taking in what we can learn and what other people are doing on safety that's been effective, and trying to educate ourselves in the region on the topic. So we welcome the input of everyone. The third piece of the action agenda is this doing while planning idea, which is going to allow us to get some on the ground practice while we kick off the action agenda. This month, we'll also start a Flossmoor local road safety plan. Todd Schmidt, who's here, I believe, is leading that effort. And this will allow us to understand what the needs of our local governments are in terms of safety, how we can support those needs, and hopefully kind of provide a framework for the work going forward. We also hope to provide in-progress research and resources for governments in our region. So, this will take us a couple years to do a really good job if we're going to do policy work or design guidance, but we want to also take action as soon as possible and provide, for example, data to local governments or help them understand what their issues are, something like that. We also want to incorporate the work that we're doing into the project selection processes at CMAP. So we have obviously lots of projects that we fund and guide the funding on, and we hope that safety plays a larger role in those selection processes and going forward. And then finally, the last piece of the agenda is this is the kind of deliverables for the action agenda, and these may be a ways out. We hope, as I said, there are interim versions of them, but eventually we'll want to figure out what tools and resources everyone needs and make them easy to access, easy to understand, easy to implement. That's where we know we can have a positive impact. That could come in the form of policy, design guidance, and this coalition building, this awareness piece where we can increase the role that CMAP plays on the safety in the safety world, and hopefully raise the awareness regionally on what we need to do with traffic safety. And we know initially, as I mentioned, that speed management is there's a major issue with speed management on our roadways that was exacerbated during the pandemic. We intend to study speed management. It seems to be not just a regional issue, a national issue. There are a lot of organizations that have identified this as a primary topic of concern, in addition to driver behavior. And then bicycle and pedestrian safety, the vulnerable modes and the increased interest in them have kind of put them at the forefront of our vision for the research work. So with that, I'm happy to take any comments or questions, and please, my contact information is here. You know, I'd love to have conversation with anyone who's interested or wants to participate. You know, we want to make this as comprehensive as possible.
Does anybody have any comments for Vicki?
Hey, Victoria, this is Abraham Emanuel with CDOT. Thanks for your presentation. One of the items we have been looking this year, and you mentioned there are different angles to look at crashes. So there has been an uptick in crashes or fatalities that are resulting from a violent incident, like people purposely trying to harm someone else, or people dying from a shootout, but they're also in a car and the car went and hit something else. And they all get reported as fatal crashes. And oftentimes we look at it to the details, and it looks really hard to, even determine if it is is it a traffic event or is it a criminal event?
Mm-hmm.
And
wow,
what
interesting.
we even noticed these type of serious events even moved away during the pandemic, moved away from downtown to the west and south side of the city. So it's consistent with some of the increase in criminal activity there.
Yeah, we have heard some number of this increase is related to that, and to the extent that CMAP has the tools to address that, if there's policy work, we'll look at it. There's a lot of levers that affect traffic safety. So as we look at these at the data, we will have to definitely decide, what we can do something about on a broad scale too, right? For the region. So yeah, there's a lot to understand. I mean, someone joked, like, you start digging in, thinking that you're going to get your head around a certain dimension, pavement, or, all these details that form our experience and our operations on the roadway, and it all just leads to a whole lot more information. So we will have to focus. That's true. And to the extent that we can affect change through design for some of those issues, we would do so.
Or capture that data in a better way so we can code them differently.
Yes. Right.
The other item I have been thinking internally after working with some of the insurance companies for a long time. It's the way we have been classifying the crashes. Our sole measure is bodily injury to someone. That is the only measure. But the insurance companies look at that from the damage perspective, which is also correlated to the force of that collision.
Mm-hmm.
We have never looked at crashes from that perspective, and insurance companies have that data.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, I think there is some benefit in looking at things from that perspective. Maybe, especially with inbuilt, the infrastructure issues that may be causing these.
Yeah, insurance companies, we have identified not just as a source for understand. They also have, I don't know if any of you have kids who are drivers, but if you want to lower your insurance premiums, now you can install a device in your car that measures like extreme braking events and extreme acceleration events when you have a young driver. And if they do a good enough job over the course of a month or two, your insurance premiums don't go through the roof. So we intend to try to find out as much as we can from insurance companies, if as much as they'll share with us in terms of understanding, you know, near misses, extreme braking events, you know, might indicate an accident that almost happened. So it's something that we're definitely thinking about. And we see insurance companies as maybe a partner going forward in terms of new programs.
And on the subject of near misses, I saw a great presentation about automatic traffic signal performance monitoring, where you can look at when vehicles enter intersections, and instead of waiting for a crash to happen, be looking at vehicles that are entering on red or exactly the near misses. The person who made the presentation made the funny comment of, we don't have to wait for incidents to pile up at an intersection anymore. We can look and see which ones are actually having some unsafe performance based on performance monitoring without actually having to crash.
Yeah, the cameras at the intersection can detect that. If you have the right camera and the right technology, they can tell you how many people are on the crosswalk when the light is red, or how many vehicles are going through the signal when the light is red, and all that. So.
Right. Well, and then this connected devices thing where, you know, if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, that the signals like the car automatically starts to slow. I mean, there's like some really exciting emerging technology, which I think some of us are nervous to rely on completely from a safety standpoint, but it's important to know how things might change in the future.
Right.
Just wanted to make sure, Vicki, you saw there's a comment from Ralph Volpe that FHWA Office of Operations and the Office of Safety are halfway through a task order to examine the leveraging of TSMO and safety for state DOTs, MPOs, and counties and municipalities. And so if that's something that'd be interesting, the two of you might want.
Yes, for sure. We will connect on that for sure.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments for Vicki? If not, her presentation will be out on our website after this meeting, and so you'll find her contact information there too. So it'll be easy for you to get in touch with her later if you think of something, and don't hesitate.
Right.
We're all working by a lot of email now, so we welcome those emails. All right, so here we are getting on to 11:17. I think that we have enough time to go through agency updates, if we can make those pretty succinct. And I suppose it might be easy for me to call on people. So I have a list of people here, and I'll just go through. DuPage County, do you have any updates to provide?
Yes, we do. So tomorrow, actually, we are expecting to get our server-to-server connection with Naperville established. So it's been the COVID situation has slowed us down a lot with trying to get in and out of everybody's offices to get firewalls configured and all that sort of thing, and get the right IT people on site on the right day. But finally, after quite a long time, it looks like we should be connecting our system. So hopefully by the next time we meet, Andy and I will have some actual operational experience that we can share with the group, rather than just what's coming in the future.
That's your testing of a shared signal system, central signal system software. That's what that refers to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, it's our two. We have the common central signal software packages, and the idea is for them to be able to talk to each other so that we can see one another's signals where we have crossing routes and kind of common. Well, today we don't have common operations, but trying to get toward some common operations between us without either one of us having to give away control to the other agency. So truly collaborative, rather than one agency or the other kind of managing someone else's system.
Oh, good. That's very exciting, and something CMAP is really interested in, shared resources and how that can be savings for the region. Okay. Is that it, Bill?
Yes.
Okay, how about you, Stephen Zilkowski? What's going on in Kane County? Anything?
I got a couple of small updates that the group might be interested in. We have a adaptive traffic signal control project that's heading towards actually turning on adaptive control. This is Randall Road between Big Timber and Huntley. We are heading towards March or April timeframe as far as turning on adaptive signal control. This is going to be the rapid flow SurTrack technology. So we're looking forward to that. This past year, we finished a whole bunch of flashing yellow arrow traffic signal turn-ons between northern Randall Road in Kane County, as well as large parts of Orchard and Fabian Parkway. At the final update, we have our Longmeadow Parkway Bridge and associated toll plaza scheduled for opening to traffic on January 1st of 2022, assuming everything goes as expected. That's it.
All right, thank you, Stephen. For Cook County, Rich or Brian Roberts, you're from Cook County too, right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, I can start out, and then Rich, you can jump in if you have anything to add.
Okay.
We talked a lot about safety, so just some updates on that. Cook County is planning to do a pretty robust crash data analysis effort during the year. Right now, we're really beefing up our existing data sets. We have our traffic signals mapped really well, but we don't really have anything else mapped, things like horizontal curves and things like that. So we're going to be looking at not only crashes at the busiest intersections, but also where there are potential design improvement opportunities. So more to come later in the year. For traffic operations, we have we signed up for Ways for Cities program. We have a model built where we are evaluating our closed loop interconnect systems to look at potential ways to prioritize our SCAT resources. So to really leverage kind of existing equipment and capabilities to help improve traffic flow on those corridors. We're in data collection mode right now, and obviously traffic volumes come with a large caveat during COVID, but we hope to really deploy this later in the year once traffic volumes are somewhat back to normal, whatever we can call normal.
Right.
And then from a traffic signal equipment perspective, we are working on the first annual or biennial program to really replace and modernize our traffic signal system. We are right now shooting to fully replace 10 or 12 traffic signals, modernize about a dozen others. And we're also, as part of that, looking at communication options. So that is in design right now. We hope to let that later this year. And then lastly, we have quite a few phase 1 RFQs coming out soon. We're going to be looking to really right size our streets as part of those and incorporate traffic signal upgrades wherever possible.
So Brian, that's really great about the traffic signals. How long do you think that the replacing and modernization of, what is that, like 24 traffic signals, is that going to happen all in 1 year?
So the plan is to let it this fall. I would think it would, definitely trickle into 2022. And then, sometime later this year, we're going to start to work on the next program. So again, I don't know if it'll be annual or biennial, somewhere in there. But the hope is to start to chip away at our pretty large need in terms of state of good repair.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with you offline, because the information that you collect for what's in the RFP and what the extent of the replacement was and the costs and stuff will be really useful to us going forward. So I hope that sounds like something that can inform our traffic signal work a lot. Great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything, Rich? Or I'm sorry, are you finished, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know if Rich has anything else, but that's it for me.
No, I think you did a good job, Brian. You covered it all.
Oh, very good. Okay, how about John Nelson? We've heard from Lake County this morning, but do you have any updates?
Yeah, I have a couple ones. I mean, besides, I was going to share a little bit about that ATS PMs and crowdsourcing, but Justin took care of that earlier in the meeting. So We continue using that. With regards to Passage, we are continuing to update our system. Our website's had some new features added and kind of enhancing our, especially right now in winter with our snowplow tracking and snapshots from the snowplows as they're driving along the road. So, and we already have a pretty large update to our app coming out soon, which will allow people to pick their favorite cameras and have a separate list of just favorites, and just get a more personalized experience on the app side of things. And then regarding signal infrastructure, we are working with our GIS department right now to create a data collector tool that will allow us to update our inventory in the field. They'll automatically come back and fill out, populate our access database. So allow us to get all the data, serial numbers, everything right away in the field, take pictures, and incorporate all that into our access database. So,
is that going to include condition and, you know, the other things that we talked about as far as asset condition? Is that a good demonstration project for the region?
I wouldn't say we're looking at condition. I mean, we're looking at, we know years of when stuff is installed, so we're looking at, we know makes and models, and based on makes and models, we'll know the condition. So we'll know if a detection camera is a certain model, we know that that's already been end of life, and there's not much support on that one versus other equipment. So we're not rating the equipment as condition that way as far as poor or good like that, but just more just the data itself.
Yeah, and that'll be signals that Lake County owns, not other signals in Lake County.
Yep, signals that we own, and it's using an Esri app through our JS group.
Well, great. I'll probably be in touch with you offline about that too.
Okay.
Super.
I think that's all I had. Justin's still here if you have anything else I missed.
The only thing I would add is, do you want to talk about Butterfield Road Adaptive?
Yeah. Yep. Thanks. Yep. So our adaptive system was let. We have our latest adaptive going to construction now. We have a pre-construction meeting with the state at the end of this month, and we will be moving towards the construction in later this year.
What was the location of that again?
What's that?
What was the location of that again?
Butterfield Road from Allenson up to Illinois 137 in Vernon Hills, Libertyville area.
So that's multiple signals?
Yep, it's about with 9 signals, Matt, or Justin, I think 9-10 signals, and it includes flashing yellow arrow along the corridor as well.
All right. Sorry for interrupting.
Nope.
All right, Will County, Christina. Are you still here? Let me see. Yeah, you're still here. Christina, if you're talking, we can't
I'm going to start out. Yeah, I'm still here. Can't you hear me?
I can now. Yeah.
I'm unmuted.
You're good.
You can hear me now? Okay, yes. Good. All right, I'm going to start with actually a project that is very no ITS involved. The county received HSIP funds, and we are starting phase 1, or we'll start phase 1 as soon as the agreements are approved by IDOT for the first roundabout in the county on county's highway system. So that'll be at Exchange in Burville, Stony Island. So that's what we're looking at there. And as far as our ITS, countywide ITS, if Matt Letourneau's here still, he's gonna probably have a better idea of exactly where we're at from day to day, because his company, AECOM, is our consultant for that project.
Matt, are you still, do you want to say anything about that? He's here, but
he's not.
He's not. I can't hear you.
Well, then I'll just go ahead, and we've gotten through our existing. We've put together the existing data. So we have the existing asset plan basically at that point. Like some of the other work, COVID the last year has delayed some stuff. We haven't been able to do meetings like we wanted to do meetings. So really the next step is getting back together. I know AECOM is working on a project list. So the next step would be to go back to our steering committee and talk through that next project. Yeah, as Matt said, his audio isn't working. And yeah, the needs assessment has been done and we're looking at Canada ITS solutions.
All right, very good. Is that it for today, Christina?
That is it.
Okay, thank you. Let's get in touch with IDOT here. I see that we have Kevin Price and Betsy Tracy. You're with IDOT, right? We don't show all the agencies. Or Terry, does anyone have anything they want to talk about?
This is Betsy.
This is.
I'm with.
Oh, go ahead.
Anyway, sorry.
What?
This is Terry Heffern with IDOT. We have a few things to report. We have a facility called Station 1, which is located in Springfield. It's long been our incident clearinghouse for the state, for the expressway system. And it's recently been modernized and expanded, and it will provide improved incident clearinghouse and also provide backup operational support to our district's TMCs statewide, the ones that don't have 24/7. It'll provide support in the off hours, and it'll also provide emergency backup support. We're also continuing to develop a statewide ITS communication network to support communications between Station 1 and all of the other IDOT district TMCs throughout the state. We've initiated a TISMO program plan. We had our first introductory meeting in October. Ralph Voorhees, who spoke earlier today, he was very helpful in getting us started on that effort. We're in the early stages of it, but we think that's going to be very helpful in setting a course for IDOT to improve our operations. We just completed an innovative technology deployment program plan top-level design document, which sort of a planning document for the facilities such as weigh stations, which support freight operations in the state of Illinois. And that was just submitted and approved by Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. That allows us to now become eligible for additional truck freight funding for projects that support freight in Illinois, particularly freight safety. We're working on our statewide advanced traffic management system study. We're at about the midpoint, and I know several of you have been participating in those. We had a steering committee meeting in November. We're in the development of the concept of operations, and after that, we'll be starting to define our system requirements. Our next steering committee meeting for that is February 1st of 2021, coming up, first day of next month. And we're also, the District 1, IDOT is leading the regional arterial study. I know I was going to hand this off to Matt, but unless Matt's audio has come back on, I know that they've been continuing to work on that project. I was on the phone with Matt just the other day, and I know that they're working with IDOT to get some input on their existing ATMS system and what IDOT thinks the future for not necessarily the operational element, but at least the software and components part is. And I think that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Terry. Kevin? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Terry covered it from the central office. I didn't know if either one of the two District 1 people had anything else to add.
Okay.
Would be Lucas or Jonathan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for telling me who they are.
This is Jonathan from District 1. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Very
good.
well.
I think the only thing I just wanted to just run back to the I-290 thing you were talking about earlier. Sorry, I was having a problem with the microphone, so I didn't speak up. I would just say, yeah, whoever you contacted about that at the department, just kind of follow up with them, and then we can follow up on that for you. Sorry, nobody jumped in on that.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you. Can you recommend a person besides I can find out from Scott who all he talked about, but is there a person that you'd especially like me to get in touch with?
Since it sounds like it's more of an operations thing, I don't know who you've been in contact with. Probably either Jose Rios, he's our manager of operations, or Lisa Heavenbaum, she's our bureau chief of traffic operations.
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hi, this is Lucas from IDOT Traffic Design. So I just wanted to add a couple of things. So we're in the early stages to have IDOT Signal Traffic Management System going, and we're actually working on the plans to have a first group of signals connected together to be part of that system.
Where's that going to be operated out of?
I think it's a District 1 headquarters.
All right.
And we're working on the signals within the area, like the Schaumburg area. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Rich, is this the area that you were thinking that you and IDOT could be combining efforts because Cook County has signals here? Is my memory correct in that, the Schaumburg area?
That is correct, yeah.
Your memory is great, Claire. That's the same area.
Okay. All right. How about who we didn't get to? City of Chicago, Abraham Emanuel. Are you still here? Let's see.
It looks like he just dropped. He left an update in the chat box.
Oh, all right then. Anybody else have anything to offer?
Yeah, Mark. I have a report from RTA, if I may.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, this is Mark Pitstick at RTA. Report on the Transit Signal Priority Program. Taki mentioned a little bit. I just wanted to add a little bit about that. So this is a large regional program that's managed by the RTA using a CMAQ fund, CMAQ grant. PACE and CTA are implementing most of this project with assistance in the city by CDOT, and in the suburban areas by using PACE is actually doing the implementation with permits from IDOT and in cooperation with IDOT and other DOTs. As Taki mentioned, they've deployed their system on Milwaukee Avenue, parts of it in the city, part of it in the suburbs there, and they have implemented that and been testing that in the fall. They were able to successfully demonstrate that the buses were able to communicate with both the IDOT and the CDOT intersections and receive transit signal priority at the appropriate time. So that was a major milestone. They are currently upgrading some of the communication equipment on their buses based on some of that testing. And so they will have then full operation on that segment from basically from Golf Mill down into Jefferson Park. The reason that's important is that CTA has deployed transit signal priority through this program on parts of South Ashland in the city and most of Western Avenue in the city. They used a bit of a different communication approach, and that was based on what they had done on Jeffrey Jump a few years ago. And that used some proprietary communication techniques, and that equipment was purchased about 5 years ago, and that vendor is no longer supporting that equipment, and the proprietary techniques are hard to utilize. So they're having some communication issues. They have been, and they need to convert to a more interoperable communication system, which has been the focus of our program. And so they are going to test a CTA bus on the PACE corridor in Milwaukee to see if that works for them, and then they will convert their communication system to something, an interoperable system using the same approach, not necessarily the same equipment and vendors. So that'll be a major milestone. We just extended our grants with CTA, CDOT, and PACE for 2 years to implement the rest of the PACE corridors and to implement the CDOT and CTA corridor on north and central portions of Ashland. So I think that's it.
And I think I'll reiterate the point I've been making. The TSP program has also been a source of some information for our traffic signal study, because they had to look closely at what equipment was out on the street and what it would take to modernize it. And it turns out a lot of the cost of the, we'll say what was supposed to be a low cost project of TSP actually turns out to be improving traffic signals to allow TSP to operate. And so, I mean, that's another disbenefit of having old and out of date signal equipment, is that you can't use new kinds of technologies like TSP with it. You have to replace it first.
Right, and the cost is not just replacing the traffic signal equipment and the controllers, but the communication equipment. That's actually higher even than the traffic signal controller. So, but it's absolutely necessary to make that work. And you know, we've had good cooperation from the DOTs, but it turns out to be very expensive because we're basically upgrading the traffic signal system on all these corridors. So, in our system, our communication system is based on vehicle to intersection communication, which is not ideal. That's creating a lot of these problems that we're having. It's because we got a lot of equipment there, and that equipment goes out of date quickly. And what we would like to have is a centralized approach where we have the buses communicating through the bus centers to the traffic centers to the intersections. That's not, we're not able to do that on these corridors yet, because this is all stuff. Most of these corridors are in Cook County, where we don't have that. IDOT doesn't have that capability, and CDOT does have some of that capability, but only on to a limited extent within the city. So it'd be a lot cheaper and a lot easier to do that with centralized systems, but we can't yet.
Back to the communications white paper. Everybody go take a look at that.
That's why I wanted to give my update. So
thank you, Mark. And sorry, I didn't mean
to. Dave from PACE. I just want to reiterate. Mark said that we have been working with John and Lake County, and we're trying to once we get the system running, we do want to work with them on trying to, as Mark said, do a communications, because the infrastructure is in place up there. So, so it's not off the table. It's just, we got to work with what we have, what we're given right now of dealing with these older controllers and trying to do workarounds basically just to make the system function properly. So, okay, thanks.
Oh, no. All right, then. Sorry, I was trying to send a message to everybody. Sorry, Betsy, I didn't mean to send that just to you. Okay, is anybody else on the line that wants to provide an update? Could be federal partners, consultants, anybody have any announcements or information they'd like to share?
Open mic, huh?
Open mic, yeah, it's our open mic time. Okay, hearing none, we've gone on a little bit short of our traditional 2.5 hours. Good work, everyone. We will be reconvening this group again on, I have it written down here someplace.
April 15th at 9:30 a.m.
Oh yeah, tax day. And I'll just repeat what we said about our documents that we looked at. Everyone has a chance for a little while more to take a look at the ITS architecture, to give me input. I-290 concept of operations, I'm going to go check with IDOT's District 1 operations office to make sure that they don't oppose anything that we said. Take a look at our signal modernization recommendations, and for your information, take a look at the communications white paper, because really Scott did a super job on it, and there's a ton of information in there. So thank you very much for participating this morning, and I'll see you in April. All right.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.